What does it take to lead with purpose when life feels heavy, leadership feels demanding, and your message is still unfolding? Whether you're a pastor, an educator, or an entrepreneur, the way you lead starts with what you carry on the inside. Before we get started, I want to thank our legacy partner, Craig Williams, founder of Conversary. At Spark Hope, we believe story matters because story shapes how we lead, how we connect, and how we show up in the world. Conversary helps authors and leaders bring clarity to their story and confidence to their voice so that their brand truly reflects who they are. You can learn more about their work by visiting the link in today's show notes or on the Spark Hope website. Thank you, Conversary, for supporting the Lead with Hope podcast. Welcome to the Lead with Hope podcast, where faith, leadership, and real life come together. We have honest, practical conversations, and this is a space where hope is more than a feeling. It becomes a leadership strategy that shapes how you think, show up, and lead in every area of your life. Each episode is designed to help you move from pressure to clarity and from clarity into purpose so that you can lead yourself and others with courage, intention, and lasting results. Today, my guest is David Swihart. He is a pastor, a coach, a speaking trainer, an entrepreneur, and a nonprofit executive director. David, I want to just turn the floor over to you. I want you to tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Absolutely. Brandi, thanks so much for having me today. I love your podcast, love what you've been doing, and just so thrilled to partner with you here today. I've been a pastor for, 20 plus years now. I started in 2002, so I guess I'll have to do the math, 24 years. And in between all of that, I've worked with all kinds of different groups. I've done work with adults with mental disabilities. I've worked with youth and teenagers. I've worked with inner city youth. I've worked with the homeless at a homeless day center. And all of that has really brought me together and just understanding people and just seeing that every person needs exactly what you're talking about. They need that hope. And my journey has brought me into that place of realizing so many people have a story. So many people have an incredible message that they've been living, and they don't realize the power of their story. And so that's why the speaking training is so much a part of me now, is I want to help people bring their story to the world, especially the faith-based stories. I mean, I love working with pastors. I love working with authors. I love working with speakers to help them just hone that message, get it into that place where they can really share their story and bring meaning and hope into the world, because our stories resonate with the right people.
100% agree with you on that. And, in your work with leaders and authors as you're shaping their message, talk to us a little bit about how you help someone take pain from their life experience and turn it into a message of purpose that can serve other people.
Absolutely. Well, I like to use the concept of the wound. Now, it's something we learned in coaching training, but it's something that I really love the concept of. If I touch a wound and you go, ouch, that still hurts, it's not healed yet. And a lot of people speak and write out of those pain points when they have not found healing yet. They're still looking for healing, and writing can be very cathartic. Telling your story can be very cathartic. But in order to really help people, you have to do the hard work of dealing with that pain and that wound. And so I always tell people the first thing they have to do is work with a counselor, work with a therapist, work through processes. I mean, if that's a 12-step process, if that's a trauma process of some form, they have to work through that first. And then once they've worked through that, because when I touch the wound and they go, let me tell you about that scar, now they're ready. Because what happens a lot of times with a lot of speakers I've worked with is the pain is still so real. The person or people who've hurt them is still so real that they have to work through forgiveness models. They have to work through the healing journey, and they are still in some way trying to get back at the person who hurt them. And you've got to take away that vindictive piece, because you can't help people from a vindictive spot. You can't help people from a place of unforgiveness. So when I work with authors and people who've got stories, and again, it could be the worst and worst of traumas that we could possibly imagine or talk about, all the way through just light and things that happen to all of us. Places where our parents neglected us slightly or didn't do exactly what we were expecting or hoping for. And so I work with my authors and speakers wherever they are in that journey And I help them think through, how do you tell this story in a way that honors yourself, honors the people in your life around you, and honors your audience?
Mhm.
Because, for example, if you have someone who was abused in any way, I mean, those are always terrible stories. I hate any form of abuse. I mean, who likes those things? I mean, let's be honest. But
Mhm.
whenever I work with someone who's been a victim of abuse, I make sure that they understand their story could trigger people.
Yeah.
They could trigger secondary trauma. And it's one of those areas where I work very intentionally and say, how many details do we need to work through here? How much of this story do you need to tell? Because you trigger your audience, you've lost your audience. And it's a very important piece. And so when I work with authors, I really work through the story, help them figure out how to tell it, how to keep away from re-traumatizing or trauma or giving secondary trauma, because there's just stories that can't be told, and there's
Mhm.
stories that have to be told very carefully and very sensitively, and they have to be told in a way that you get permission from the audience to tell them as well.
There's so much wisdom in that, David. People don't want to see your wounds. They want to hear about your scars, right? We all
Hmm.
heard that. Now, if somebody has done that, they have worked through their pain and they're ready to craft their story. There's a lot of frameworks out there. We Do you have a model or a framework that you recommend that speakers use?
Well, I'm a very custom fit person, because as I've developed my own speaking journey, I mean, I really did never want to be a speaker. I mean, that's kind of a funny part of me. I mean, God's kind of kept me in a place to learn and grow. And so everything I've learned has been through classroom, through self-learning, through reading, through practice, through plenty of mistakes and issues and aha moments. And so what I've learned is one size doesn't fit all. I mean, I
Mhm.
wish there was a model that could just say, okay, Brandy, here's exactly how you do it. But the thing is it's so custom to the audience, it's so custom to the speaker, because we all think differently, we all feel differently. And everything from the educational speaker to the humorous speaker to the I mean, there's just so many different ways that we can speak. And so I like to work with each speaker with where they are, and stretch them into some of those areas. I mean, if you're not a humorous person, don't try to force humor into your speech,
Right.
but there's ways to tell a story that will bring some humor into the room. There's
Mhm.
ways to lift the mood and lower the mood. There's ways to bring emotion in and take emotion out. And so when I work with a speaker, I really try to feel out who they are and how they're going to present. And then what I do is I really help them plan out from a logic standpoint, emotional standpoint, a flow standpoint, to get to where they want to go. Because not every speaker has the same purpose. Some people are just wanting to get on stages and speak. They don't want to sell things. They don't want to develop a course. They don't want to do anything more than be on a stage and talk to people, share their story. And then there's people who want to do all those other things. They want to sell books, they want to sell courses, they want to work with people one on one and everything in between. And so I try to work with my speakers right where they are and not try to make them something that they're not. And that's always my goal, is to help them. And so my basic process is this. First, we sit and we just work on planning the speech. What
Mhm.
needs to happen in it? What are your expertise points? What are the things that you want to accomplish in this speech? I mean, if you had a conversation with someone for 5 or 10 minutes, what is the one or two pieces of wisdom you would want to make sure they walked away with, if it was just the only time you're going to meet with them? Those are the things I love to get into a speech, because we have to plan those things. We have to think through those things. Well, then once we've got those things planned, we start preparing, and we start preparing and putting the speech together. Well, what are my main body points? What are the stories that go with those? What are the things that are going to help structure that? What are my nuggets that I'm going to be able to give, those one or two sentence phrases that people are going to remember, hang their hat on, and take away from my speech? Once you've got those bullet points, then you write the conclusion, and you get the conclusion written. So if its call to action is to do something specific, to take an action, if it's to buy something from you, if it's to enroll in your course, I mean, whatever that is, we figure out what that is and how they can do that, giving them, of course, the proof and things that go with that. Once all of that's done, I take them back to the introduction, say, okay, how are we going to get them into this speech?
Mhm.
Because a lot of people start with the introduction, and that actually throws a lot of people off. They don't
Mhm.
know how to get it started. And so I have people write the body and the conclusion first, and then figure out, how are we going to get the audience bought into this speech? How are we going to get them into this? And so the planning and preparing stage go back and forth, and we get a lot of that done. Well, then we walk into a cycle of practice and present. And
Mhm.
practice is getting all the words, the phrases, the ways you're going to frame and tell the stories, and just doing that on your own, doing that with your family and friends. I mean, the last speech I prepared, I did with my daughter and my son. My daughter's
Mhm.
22, my son's 14, and they gave me great feedback because they've listened to me speak for so long. They said, Dad, you need to pause there. Dad, you're going too fast there. Dad, you're but that's the feedback we all need as speakers to know how to do that. And so practicing and presenting, then you find other groups, small groups at church, small friend circles, chamber of commerces, depending on your area, Rotary clubs and other small clubs like that. They love to have speakers come in. It's a great place to hone your speech, see how people respond to it, see how the humor works or if it doesn't. See how all those things work, and you keep working through that process, and then you go back to the prepare and plan as you get through a speech, and you go back and you practice and present it again, and keep honing and honing and honing to the point where it's not a perfect word, but it's perform.
Right.
Because when you can perform your speech, and that's not taking away from all the work you've done to it, but it's a second nature. It's become so familiar to you. You can get up on stage at a moment's notice and give the speech and engage with the audience in a way that they feel it's the first time they've ever heard it. And that's the goal.
David, you said the goal is to perform the speech and engage with the audience because this speech, yeah, it's your story, but it's not
Hmm.
about you.
Yep.
You are adding value to the audience that you are delivering this speech to. So we really have to craft it and perform it in such a way that we're engaging the audience and we're adding value to their life, to their leadership, whatever that message. I talk about the fact that I speak and I coach, right?
Hmm.
And when I tell somebody I speak, a lot of people they get that look on their face. I mean, public speaking is one of the things that most people fear. They have no desire to get in front of an audience and to speak. And so there's some mindset shifts that are going to be required in order for somebody to get really good at speaking. Can you
Yep.
talk a little bit about some of the mindset tricks that you help your speakers work through?
Well, Brandy, I do an entire webinar on this because it is such a huge issue for a lot of people. And I
Mhm.
always tell people the issue is you've got some teenage or younger version of yourself who has defined your beliefs about speaking.
Yeah.
Okay. Because most of us, the first time we spoke was in school. And a lot of us has had a peer who said something to us, a teacher who said something to us, someone along the way that said, you're not really good at this, or you could have done better. And it created a feeling within us that made it, I don't ever want to do this again. And that version of us is sitting inside of us telling us that even today as adults. And so we have to go back and deal with that because we're no longer sitting in a room full of peers who are going to make fun of us, who are going to ridicule us, who are going to try to embarrass us, and all those emotions that go around it. And those are very strong emotions that we have to recognize and identify when we're in the speaking world. Basically, when we get up on stage, we have all of these thoughts in our head about who we are,
Mhm.
how powerful our message is or isn't. And we have imposter syndrome that will pop into that of I don't belong here, I don't have anything to say. And I just want to counter that with this thought for your audience is you have a message that you have been living and God has been preparing in you. So you need to speak. You need to say things that God has done in your life because you do not know how those are going to impact with other people. And God may have been allowing you to go through all these things, find healing through all of these things, so you can help the next person or even a group of people or even a huge stadium of people work through the very same thing. And so your message is so important. That's why I encourage them to work with someone like myself or other speaking coaches who can actually help them see how powerful their message is and their story is. But then it's also understanding the difference in the audience. A bunch of teenagers, yeah, that's a tough crowd. And for
Mhm.
those who might be speaking to teenagers in this group, they need you as a grown teenager, someone
Yeah.
who's made it through those years, to
Right.
speak confidently and fully into their lives. But all of us who are grown teenagers
Mhm.
also are sitting in the audience because most of the people who walk in the audience are no longer sitting there going, I wonder if I can embarrass this speaker. They're sitting there when they walk into the room. And if you're a speaker who has some anxiety, I want you to take this idea. When they walk in that room, they are hoping, they are praying, they are desiring that they will get something out of what you have to say. They want what you have. They don't
Mhm.
even know necessarily They need it, but they want it. And when the audience is walking in, they're cheering you on. They want you to succeed. I mean, if you ever watch some of the TED Talks, I mean, some of the speakers who are the most nervous, the audience comes around them and they'll cheer them on. They will
Mhm.
support them verbally with applause. They want them to succeed on that stage. And that's true of most audiences today. Very few audiences are going to be sitting there looking to find a way to poke at you or make fun of you. And I found for a lot of my speakers, just those two little things, believing in their message and what they've got to say, and knowing the audience wants to hear it, are two of
Mhm.
the most powerful pieces of overcoming that. Now, I've got dozens of other strategies of how to help with that and how to
Mhm.
make that happen. But those two things are two of the biggest mindset shifts that I find. And the only other, and the biggest strategy I would give people is practice, 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 practice. You can't say it enough. I mean, my last speech, I mean, I can get up and speak at a very high level off the cuff. I mean, I developed that skill very heavily. My last speech that I prepared for a stage for a keynote, I practiced over 30. And for me, that is a lot, but I can tell you the difference between a speech that I prepared 5 times or practiced 5 times, 10 times, 20 times, and 30 times. Because
Yeah.
it gets tighter, it gets better, it gets honed, it gets just everything gets so much better around the whole speech. And
Mhm.
so, that helps with the nerves too, because I knew every word of that speech, exactly where I was going with every piece of it, and I knew exactly where everything was going to happen.
And when you put in those reps, takes discipline. It takes
Yes.
that consistent effort, and it might only be an hour a day to get in those reps, but it's important that you're
Hmm.
disciplined and that you're showing up consistently to hone the craft because it's a skill.
Yes.
And some of us are more gifted at it than others, but we can all learn it and we can all improve this craft of speaking
Hmm.
if we're willing to put in the reps.
Absolutely. And I like to use two words within the scope of that, exactly what you just said: art and craft. The
Mhm.
art is that natural ability that some people just have to get up and say things the right way. I mean, it can be taught, but there is an art to it. And there's the ability to get up and communicate and to say things, the voice, the way you use the voice, to tell a story. There's that. But the craft is just as important, knowing how to put all those things together. Because I've also heard a lot of people who have the natural ability who never put the work into the speech. So they say a lot of things, but they don't ever say things that need to be said. And so the craft is the ability to put a good speech together, to know how flow works through a speech, to know how the logic goes through, how the emotion goes through, how each story ties in with the point, and how each point ties in with the story, how every call to action and every application point ties in with the speech as a whole, and how it moves them from point A to point B to point C to point D to point E to the conclusion. I mean, to know how all of those things fit together. I mean, there's a craft to that. And I mean, I can help on both sides. I can help with the craft on the one side of let's get a great speech written, but then help you figure out how to deliver it well. How do I
Yeah.
pause? How do I emphasize? How do I use my voice? How do I take my voice and vary it so that it works for my speech? When do I get soft? When do I get loud? When do I use various tones to make it more intentional?
Let's pause for just a moment because I want to tell you about a partner who truly aligns with the heart of this podcast, Commissary. Here on Lead with Hope, we talk a lot about clarity of purpose, clarity of voice, and clarity of direction. And that's exactly where Commissary comes in. They help leaders, educators, and change makers uncover the story behind their work and share it in a way that feels honest, meaningful, and deeply aligned with who they are. If you've ever felt the nudge to write a book, refine your message, or build a brand that actually reflects your values, not just your resume, Commissary doesn't rush you or box you in. They walk alongside you, helping you shape your story with intention and integrity. A big thank you to Craig Williams and Commissary for being a legacy sponsor of this podcast and for investing in stories that matter. Because when we share our stories with clarity and hope, real change happens. You and I met through the Maxwell group, both Maxwell certified coaches. And one of the things that John Maxwell does almost every time, if not every time that he gives up to give a speech, is he introduces himself and he says, "I'm your friend John."
Hmm.
There are some very specific habits that you can pick up if you watch John, if you listen to
Mhm.
John, shares them. And, one of those is, as I said, he connects with the audience. He lets them know that he cares about them and that he is their friend. He consistently reads and documents what he's read, and he uses that
Mhm.
material to build his speeches. Are there other habits that
Mhm.
you would be able to point out today for the listener who really is like, okay, where do I get started? What habits got the mindset
Mhm.
piece down? I've got the forgiveness down, the pain,
Mhm.
it's there, but I've healed and I'm ready to turn this into a
Mhm.
mess. Now I want to put this hope into action. I want to put this plan into action. What habits can they start putting into action today, David?
Absolutely. Well, the habits I teach are some of them will sound a little strange, but I mean, it's working with your voice. I mean,
Mhm.
you've got to get comfortable with your voice. A lot of us are not singers or people who like to sing or do music, but vocal training and vocal preparation is very important. Breathing habits are very important because breath work is both breath work as far as the ability to calm yourself and to work through that, but also having enough breath to actually speak well and to speak out and clearly is very important as well. And even working on diction, how you pronounce words and how they come out of your mouth, because everybody's mouth's shaped differently. And here's one of my biggest tips for speakers. Buy the book Fox and Socks by Dr. Seuss. It's a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Every single sound you can make with your mouth in the English language is just about in there, and every one that trips people up is sitting there. And in my workshops, I have multiple copies of the book. I will have them actually sit there and read page after page of that book out loud to each other, emphasizing those words, working through those hard sounds, because
Mhm.
each of our mouths have different places. In my last workshop, I had 25 or 30 people reading these books, and they were shocked because one person could read one they couldn't read at all, and the other one could read the one that they couldn't read, but it's because of the shape of our mouth, the way our tongues work, all of that. And so working on those type of exercises helps you get ready and be more confident because we all have words we struggle with. We have words that we don't know how to form well. And it's just that practice. It's that working through that. And so those habits, in addition to some of that you mentioned, I mean, collecting stories, collecting expertise, collecting quotes,
Right.
collecting all of those things, because knowing where each of those are and having good places for that. And I want to give a warning to the crowd as well. Be careful with using AI for some of those pieces. It's not, I mean, AI is a tool that can be used very well. And I
Mhm.
use it sometimes for trying to think through some phrases or titling or things like that. But be very careful about using it to collect stories without doing your homework. I mean,
Yeah.
it's great at helping you find a story or two, but make sure you go get the details of the story from somewhere other than AI. Use the resource. If you use one that has a research background, make sure you go and look at the research because it will shape the story in ways that maybe what shouldn't have been. So always be careful when you use that tool, because I encourage my speakers to write their speech before they use AI and then use AI to make it better rather than the other way around.
My 20 plus years in education, working with students, especially junior high students, learning to fact check is so important because if you come
Mhm.
across not being authentic, and junior high kids will call you on that quicker than
Yep.
anybody else. So you definitely have to make sure that you're delivering the content that you know and you're
Yes.
delivering it in an authentic manner.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I mean, if you quote a statistic, you better know where that statistic came from, how they got it, where the research was done, because a lot of your major statistical houses are doing very bad statistical data. And you have to be very, very careful to know what kind of study it was, where it was done, how it was done, who it was done with before you use
Mhm.
a statistic. I actually tell my speakers I very rarely encourage them to use statistics unless there's a very clear path to it, because so many of them have been disproven over time. And and because of the internet today, you can find things like I heard a speaker a couple years back say you can form a habit in 14 days. And that statistic has been disproved over and over and over again. And now the average is actually 120 plus. And then people are going to fact check me on that one. But
Right.
it's closer to 6 months worth of time, because you have to undo so many things in order to actually develop a habit. But
Mhm.
when you quote a statistic that people can look up and say you're wrong, then they're going to start questioning the whole rest of your speech. They're going to question your credibility.
And you do have to you have that competency, right? You've gotta have,
Hmm.
I think, competency, you have to have warmth so that you can
Yes.
engage with the audience, that trust and likability factor.
Yes.
And I've heard another speaker talk about needing to have moments of awe in your
Hmm.
speech. Yeah, so competency, warmth, and awe. Those are three components that I like to add into the speeches that I deliver. Now, I'm curious, David, when you think
Hmm.
about your story, you think about the message that God has given you to share
Hmm.
with the world. Can you give us a little bit of that today?
Absolutely. So my message is always is very much to faith-based authors and speakers because as I look at them as aspiring people, I want them to know that I can call it the God's map for you.
Hmm.
And it's, they God has a map because he's given you a message that needs to be shared. The message is so critical to the world. I mean, the King organization I'm a part of, and we do workshops in Dallas, right, and around the country, but it's Kingdom Communicator because we believe the kingdom has given you a message and the message is going to help further the kingdom. And so when we miss that we have a message, I mean, everything we've been through, all the things that we've gone through, the experiences, the hardships, the joys, the celebrations, all of those things are messages that need to be shared. People need to hear success stories. People need to hear failure stories. People need to hear pain stories. People need to hear pleasure stories. I mean, they need to hear all of it. And whether you've had a perfect life that has had no issues whatsoever, or if you've had the worst life that could ever be recorded, that message needs to be heard. And so the second part of the map is there's an audience that's waiting to hear it. Whether that audience is one person, 1,000 people, or 1,000,000 people, someone needs to hear that message even today. So that message needs to get out to the audience. It has to be put in a place where people can hear it, whether that's in a room, whether that's online, whether that's in a stadium. It doesn't matter where that might be. There's an audience that's waiting to hear that message. And finally, I believe God's preparing a platform for you. And that platform could be anywhere. That platform could be in your living room. It could be at your favorite coffee shop. It could be at your church. It could be in the largest venue you could ever imagine. It could be somewhere online that's going to get 10 million views. But God's got a platform that your message needs to be heard. Your audience is going to hear it, and He's preparing the platform. And we trust that God does all of that through it. What happens is we become a kingdom communicator. It becomes
Mhm.
not about us, it becomes about him. It becomes about it's not about our world, it's about his. And then the kingdom wins. And so that's always the message I share with people is God's got given you a message. He's giving you an audience. He's giving you a platform. So get out there, get out of your comfort zone, get up on the stage and get speaking.
Just be obedient. And that
Yep.
speaks so clearly, David, to the purpose piece of the Hope framework. And I have personally, and my listeners know this, I have a life verse. It's Romans 8:28. All
Mm.
things work together for the good of those who love the Lord and are called in accordance to his purpose. For you, do you have a life verse that you want to share with the audience?
Yep, Philippians 3, and I'm gonna miss the verse off the top of my head, but not that I've already obtained all this or I've already been made perfect, but one thing I do, pressing on to the goal that I press on to take that of that for which Christ Jesus took hold of me.
I love that. I love that.
And again, to have a verse that speaks loudly to us
Mhm.
and to know that that's, I mean, the thing I always look at is God's taking us where he's taken us so far, and he just is continuing to improve us and do that work in us. And that's true of whether we're a speaker, an author, or just living life and doing the job that God's called us to. I mean, whatever that place is, he's always working to bring us into a better state and closer to him.
Absolutely. Loving God and loving people. That's the mission. That's why we're here on this earth. So I appreciate you sharing your work with us today, sharing a little
Absolutely.
bit about how to become a better speaker. And I always ask my guests as we are finishing up this podcast episode, what is giving you hope in the world right now, David?
Right now, I think what's giving me the most hope is seeing the younger generation really starting to explore Christianity again. I mean, knowing that Gen Z and Gen Alpha are really finding revival, they're going back to church, they're getting engaged, and watching that happen has been really a blessing. I mean, knowing that the church is always a generation from extinction, but God's more faithful than we could ever imagine, and He keeps popping up and rising up. And so watching my kids, watching their friends, and watching young people at the church just really still engage and move forward has been really, really exciting.
It is so exciting to see our kids get excited to really get on fire for Jesus again. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Now, David, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, wants to learn more about what you do, maybe they're looking for a
Uh-huh.
coach, how would they get in touch with you?
Yep. They can email me. It's probably the easiest way at david@davidswihart.com. It's as easy as my name, David@davidswihart, and last name's SWIHART.com. And they can get a hold of me there. And yeah. And so that's usually the easiest way.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Well, Brandi, thank you so much for having me. And I love the hope you're spreading, and look forward to seeing how your group continues to grow. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's a wrap for today's episode of Lead with Hope. Remember, the world needs your leadership, and change starts with you. Fuel your life with hope, embrace your purpose, and shine your light for others. If this episode inspired you, I'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to give us a 5-star rating and share it. Every review helps spread hope and empowers more leaders to rise. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep leading with hope.